The storytelling, the maid who saved me from my own family. I still remember the night she arrived. A quiet girl with trembling hands and eyes that held more stories than her lips could ever confess. Her name was Cecilia. I didn't know then that she would one day become the only person I could trust, or that she would save me from the very people I once called family. It began months before when my father died under what everyone insisted was a heart attack. I wasn't convinced. His medication had been switched. The bottle he relied on had vanished, replaced by something identical, yet different. Even the doctor seemed nervous when I asked questions. My stepmother, Evelyn, told me to stop imagining things. My brother, Aaron, laughed at me. My uncle warned me not to stir the past. But none of them looked me in the eyes the way Cecilia did. Her first day at the mansion was strange. She wasn't interviewed. She wasn't formally hired. She simply appeared, brought by Evelyn, introduced briefly, and told to obey. There was something fragile about her. She walked like she was afraid of footsteps. She spoke like every word could cost her everything. Yet when she looked at me, her gaze sharpened, almost protective. I noticed it immediately. The house had grown cold after my father's death, not temperature-wise, but the way silence lingered too long, the way doors stayed shut, the way whispers followed me down hallways. Nights were the worst. Evelyn's friends visited late, strangers with expensive suits, dead eyes, and hushed conversations. Papers passed hand to hand. Aaron drank too much, muttering about inheritance. Uncle Victor watched me like I was an animal he was waiting to corner. Something was coming. I could feel it. Then, one evening, I caught Cecilia staring at me from the foot of the stairs. She looked pale, terrified. "Don't drink anything they give you," she whispered. That was the first time she spoke more than a sentence to me. I froze. She lowered her head immediately and disappeared into the dark corridor. I tried to question her the next morning, but she kept avoiding me. Whenever Evelyn entered the room, Cecilia went silent. Whenever Aaron passed by, she vanished. It felt as if she feared everyone in the house, except me. One night, I noticed her slipping a note beneath my bedroom door. A thin scrap of paper, shaking handwriting. "They're planning something. Don't sleep tonight." My heart slammed against my ribs. Fear wrapped around me, tight. I didn't sleep. I listened. Whispers, footsteps, the creak of my door's handle. I held my breath. Then, silence. A faint shadow disappeared down the hallway. The next morning, Aaron smiled too widely at breakfast. Evelyn asked how I slept. Their voices were sweet, but wrong. Uncle Victor just watched me. Later, Cecilia entered my room and began making the bed. Her hands trembled so violently she could barely tuck the sheets. "Tell me what's happening," I demanded quietly. She hesitated, then pulled something from her apron. A small bottle. My father's medication. "This was hidden behind the boiler," she whispered. "They replaced it." A chill slithered down my spine. She leaned closer. "They're going to do the same to you." My mouth dried. I asked her why she was helping me, but she only looked away, as if the truth was too heavy to speak. The following week, the house grew darker. Every night I felt watched. My belongings moved when I wasn't there. My food tasted strange. I started cooking my own meals. Evelyn smirked every time she saw me avoid the dining room. Cecilia shadowed me. cleaning, serving, but always watching the corners of the room like someone might emerge from them. Then, everything escalated. I woke one dawn to find my window unlocked and muddy footprints on my floor. Fresh. I ran to find Cecilia. She was standing at the back entrance with a small suitcase in her hands, crying. "They know I helped you," she whispered. Before I could respond, a voice echoed from the hall. "Aren't you going somewhere, dear?" Evelyn. Her lipstick was flawless, her smile sharp enough to cut. Two men in black suits blocked the door behind her. Cecilia stepped in front of me instinctively, like a frightened animal ready to fight for its only hope. Evelyn sighed. "You should have minded your place, girl." Her fingers lifted, a signal. One of the men moved forward, and suddenly, Cecilia grabbed my wrist. "Run!" She dragged me down the servant hallway, her breath shaking, footsteps rapid. Behind us, the men advanced, quiet, confident, hunting. Cecilia knew seemed as every hidden turn of the mansion. We slid through a narrow bore behind old shelves, down a staircase, into the cellar. The air was damp, the smell, earth, and secrets. She pulled me behind a row of dusty wine crates just as footsteps thundered above us. I stared at her, terrified, breathless. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. Her eyes filled with tears. "Because your father tried to save me once." She swallowed hard. "I couldn't save him, but I can save you." The footsteps grew louder, descending into the cellar. We were running out of time. And that was the moment I realized my family hadn't killed my father just for money. There was something deeper, something darker, something. Cecilia was still hiding something. The men's shadows stretched across the cellar floor. Cecilia squeezed my hand, as if preparing for a choice that would change everything. She pushed me deeper into the darkness, her fingers cold against my skin. My pulse hammered in my throat. The footsteps were slow, confident, like they knew exactly where we were hiding. Cecilia mouthed, "Don't breathe." One of the men dragged something metallic along the floor. The scrape echoed through the cellar. "You're only making this worse," the taller one called. His voice bounced off the stone walls. "We just need the boy. Step aside if you value your life." Boy. I clenched my fists. Cecilia's hand tightened around mine, silently warning me not to move. I could feel her trembling, but her eyes were fierce, as though she'd burned her fear long ago. The lights flickered, and the men's shadows stretched like claws across the floor. Glass bottles rattled with every step they took. Finally, the shorter man spoke. "He has to be here. Spread out." Their footsteps split, one going right, one moving toward our side. Cecilia leaned close. "There's another exit," she whispered so faintly I barely heard. "But we'll have to crawl." I didn't ask where, I simply nodded. She reached behind a cracked shelf, pressing her fingers into a gap in the wall. Stone scraped. A small panel swung open, no bigger than a vent. The crawl space beyond was pitch black. She motioned for me to go first. I hesitated. "What about you?" Her eyes softened. "I'm right behind you. Go." I dropped on my stomach and slid inside. The space was tight, dust scraping my arms, stone digging into my ribs. I could barely move. Behind me, I heard the men step closer. Then Cecilia crawled in after me and pressed the panel shut. Darkness swallowed everything. The crawl space twisted sharply. I dragged myself forward, following the faint scrape of Cecilia's movement behind me. "They know this place," I whispered. "Not everything," she answered. "Your father built his own paths." "My father?" "Yes." Her breath trembled. "He didn't trust them. He knew what they were capable of." A lump formed in my throat. The tunnel dipped. My knees slid through layers of cold grime. After several long, breathless moments, a dim glow appeared ahead, a sliver of light. We crawled faster. As soon as I slipped out, Cecilia pushed the wooden hatch up. revealing an old storage room lined with broken antiques and dusty portraits. She shut the hatch behind us. For a second, we just sat there, gasping. Then, voices. "They're in the tunnels," one of the men barked. Cecilia grabbed my hand and pulled me through the room. A narrow staircase spiraled upward. We climbed. At the top, she stopped before a rusted metal door. A faint breeze seeped under it. She twisted the handle. It groaned open. Cold night air washed over us. The garden stretched into darkness. Overgrown hedges, dead fountains, statues covered in ivy. The mansion loomed behind us like a monster awake. We ran. Branches slapped against us as we pushed through the hedge maze. I could hear shouting, the front entrance of the house bursting open as more men joined the hunt. "Where are we going?" I hissed. "There's a cottage. Your father kept records there. Proof." She glanced over her shoulder. "If we find it, we can stop them." My lungs burned. As we neared the edge of the maze, a figure stepped out. Aaron. His face twisted with a strange, gleeful anger. He held a flashlight, but the look in his eyes was dead. "You really should have stayed in your room," he sneered. My body froze. Cecilia stepped forward, placing herself between us. "Aaron, please," she said. He laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think I care what a servant says." "You killed him," I said, my voice cracking. Aaron tilted his head. "We all did our part." My stomach twisted. Cecilia subtly moved her hand behind her back, signaling me to step away. But Aaron saw the movement. He raised his arm. A gun reflected the moonlight. "She's been a problem for too long." "Don't," I whispered. He smirked. "This is how we fix things." Without thinking, I lunged forward, but Cecilia shoved me aside. The gun fired. A blast echoed through the night. For a moment, everything was slow. Air shaking. Heart pounding. Cecilia staggered. No blood. She'd ducked and struck Aaron's wrist with a rusted gardening tool she had snatched from the hedge. The gun fell. I reacted first, kicking it into the bushes. Aaron roared and swung at Cecilia, but she dodged and grabbed my arm. "Run!" We sprinted toward the trees beyond the garden. Behind us, Aaron cursed, crashing through the bushes. Twigs clawed at our skin as we raced into the woods. The darkness was suffocating. "Your father found something," Cecilia panted. "A secret. Transactions, identities, dangerous people. He tried to expose them. That's why they killed him." "What did he find?" She didn't answer. Shouts echoed behind us, more men entering the woods. Twigs snapped, leaves rustled violently. I spotted a faint shape through the darkness, a small structure. The cottage. Its windows were boarded, ivy dragging across the roof. We stumbled inside. Dust choked the air. Cecilia shut the door, sliding an old beam across it. "Search," she said. "Look for a metal box. Your father always hid things in metal." I rifled through drawers, old coats, shelves. A storm of memories crashed over me. Summer visits, my father smiling here, now replaced by terror. Cecilia tore open a rotted trunk. Nothing. Voices approached. Then, behind an old painting, I heard something metallic shift. A small safe. No keypad, no dial, just a keyhole. "Where's the key?" I whispered. Cecilia's face went pale. Boots pounded outside. Then, glass shattered. A body crashed through the window. One of the men. He rose immediately, swinging a knife. Cecilia grabbed a broken chair leg, stepping between us again. The man lunged. She blocked him, wood against steel. Sparks flew. I grabbed another piece of broken wood. My hands shook. The knife slashed across Cecilia's arm. She gasped, but didn't fall. She kicked the man in the knee. He stumbled. I rushed forward, slamming the wood into his shoulder. He grunted, turning his fury toward me. The blade flashed. Cecilia seized his wrist, twisting with desperate strength. The knife clattered to the floor. Without hesitation, she drove her knee into his stomach. He collapsed. But more voices surrounded the cottage. Cecilia grabbed my shoulders. "Listen, there's another way out." "Where's the key?" I asked. Her eyes glistened. "Your father gave it to someone he trusted more than anyone else." My breath stopped. "Who?" She swallowed. "Me." Her voice trembled as she spoke the words, as though she'd been waiting, dreading to say them. Before I could respond, she reached beneath her dress collar and tugged out a thin chain. At the end of it hung a tiny, tarnished key. My father had trusted her. She slid the key into the lock. Metal scraped softly, then clicked. The safe door opened. Inside were stacks of papers, old, yellowing documents, along with a small leather notebook and a black USB drive. Cecilia grabbed the notebook first, flipping it open. Pages were filled with names, dates, signatures, wire transfers, accounts, my entire family's corruption spelled out in my father's handwriting. "It's all here," she whispered. "He found a network. Money laundering, trafficking, bribery. Your uncle introduced him to these men. Evelyn helped handle the money. Aaron, he was just greedy." My head spun. My father, quiet, gentle, always reading by the fire, he'd been holding back a hurricane. The voices outside grew louder, more footsteps crushing leaves, approaching fast. "We have to get out," I said. "No," she replied, instantly, eyes sharp. "They'll kill us before we take one step."
"So what do we do?" She dug deeper into the safe, hands moving faster. At the bottom lay a small wooden box. She opened it, revealing a single silver ring with a strange emblem etched into the stone, a crest I'd never seen. "This," she muttered, "is proof of who they work for. This symbol ties everything together." "Who does it belong to?" I asked. "I don't know, but your father, he was terrified of it." Suddenly, the cottage door shuddered under a heavy strike. Wood cracked. We both jumped. Another blow. The beam holding the door trembled. Cecilia stuffed the USB into her pocket, thrusting the notebook into my hands. "No matter what happens," she said, "you hold on to this." The door splintered. We darted toward the back of the cottage. There, hidden behind shelves, was a narrow trap door. She flung it open. Down! I climbed into darkness just as the front door exploded off its hinges. Shouts filled the cottage. Cecilia dropped down behind me, pulling the hatch shut. Pitch black again. We crawled quickly. Hearing footsteps overhead, dust choked our lungs. Our hands slid on damp soil. The tunnel angled downward, deeper beneath the forest. Roots hung from the ceiling like claws. "Where does this lead?" I whispered. "A ravine, not far," she breathed. "We can escape if—" She stopped. Something echoed ahead, dripping. Water. Then, a flicker of light. The tunnel opened into a cavern, a narrow slit of moonlight shining through a high crack in the rocks. Below, water rushed through a jagged channel, a rimmer. Cecilia approached the edge. "It's shallow there," she pointed. "We follow it until—" Before she finished, a flashlight beam appeared behind us. They'd found the tunnel. "We have to go," I said. She nodded, gripping the notebook to my chest. "Stay close." We climbed down the rocks, slipping into the rushing water. The cold was paralyzing, but we pressed forward. Shouts echoed above, growing distant as we followed the river downstream. Branches snagged our clothes, stones bruised our feet, but adrenaline carried us onward. After what felt like hours, the river spit us out into an open clearing. The moon shone bright over a cluster of small transport trucks parked near an abandoned logging road. Cecilia paused, chest heaving. "These aren't theirs," she whispered. "They're someone else's." We crept forward. One truck's cabin light flicked on, revealing an old man inside. His face was worn, eyes sunken but sharp. A thin scar cut across his cheek. He stepped out slowly, raising both hands to show he meant no harm. "You took too long," he rasped. Cecilia froze. "You
You were still alive? She breathed. The old man nodded. I promised him I would be. Him. My father. My heart thudded. Who are you? I demanded. A friend, he answered. Your father saved me many years ago. I've been waiting for this night. How did you know we were coming? He pointed to Cecilia. She sent me a message before she was taken into the house. I turned to her. You planned this? She shook her head. I hoped, but I didn't know if we'd make it. The old man gestured toward the truck. We don't have time. They're coming. I hesitated. Where are you taking us? A safe place, somewhere they can't reach. There we can expose everything. But my father died trying to do that. He met my eyes. And that's why you must finish what he started. His words felt like a weight I wasn't ready to carry. But I looked at Cecilia, blood on her arm, clothes torn, breathing ragged, yet still standing. If she could do all this for me, maybe I could do the same. We climbed into the truck. The engine rumbled to life. As we sped down the dirt road, I looked back and saw figures emerging from the trees, flashlights, men following. The old man turned sharply, driving into thicker forest. Branches scraped the sides, headlights flickering. We'll lose them, he said. But he sounded unsure. Soon, a faint glow appeared ahead. A cabin, small, isolated. He parked behind it. Inside, quickly. We ran. The cabin was dusty, but stocked. Food, blankets, tools. Maps covered one wall, marked with symbols and lines I didn't understand. What is this place? I asked. Your father's last outpost, the old man said. Cecilia moved to a shelf filled with containers. She opened one, pulling out medical supplies. Sit, she told me, though she was the one bleeding. You're hurt, I said. She smiled faintly. So are you. The old man locked the cabin door and peered through the blinds. They won't find us easily, he muttered. I opened the notebook. As I flipped through, one page caught my eye. The same strange crest we'd found in the safe, sketched again and again, circled. Under it, a single word. Aurelius. What is Aurelius? I asked. The old man stiffened. That, he said, is the real danger. Your family was only a branch, but Aurelius is the root. Cecilia's face paled. They're still operating? They never stopped, he said, and they won't let you live now that you know. My pulse quickened. So what do we do? He stepped toward me, his eyes steady. We fight, but we need allies, proof, and time. A sudden crack outside made us all freeze. Footsteps. Cecilia grabbed my hand. The old man reached for a rifle hidden beneath the table. Through the window, I saw them. Figures moving between the trees, closing in, silent as shadows. The old man raised one finger to his lips, warning us to stay silent. The night outside felt alive with danger, every shadow stretching like a hand reaching for us. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the notebook so tightly its edges dug into my palms. A soft whistle cut through the trees. Not a bird, not the wind. A signal. They've surrounded us, the old man whispered. Cecilia scanned the cabin quickly, eyes moving across shelves, corners, windows. There's a crawl space under the floor, but it only fits one. We stayed together, I said. Her gaze lingered on mine, a mix of fear and something deeper. Before she nodded. The old man moved to a corner and lifted a loose floorboard, revealing a narrow pit filled with old blankets and a small metal box. Supplies, not an escape. The footsteps outside drew closer, now deliberate and heavy. Cecilia grabbed the metal box and flipped it open. Inside were disposable prepaid phones, several stacks of cash, and a folded map. She shoved the money and phones into her pockets. The old man took the map, studying it with quick eyes. "There's a ridge east, steep terrain. They can't move quickly there." "And we can?" I asked. He smirked faintly. "If you want to live." The lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the cabin. I heard the old man curse under his breath. "We've got seconds." A glint flashed as he slid a metal latch off the back door. "Stay low, follow me, don't fall behind." He pushed the door open. Cold night air rushed in. We slipped outside, moving between the trees behind the cabin. The forest was thick. Branches clawed at our clothes. Wet leaves slick beneath our feet. Behind us, the cabin door crashed open, shouts erupting inside. "They're not far," Cecilia whispered. "We go east until the ground drops. Then we climb." We wove deeper into the woods. Every snapped twig felt too loud. Every breath felt too sharp. At one point, I glanced back. Flashlights cut through the dark, beams weaving like hungry serpents. "They're using trackers," the old man muttered. "What?" I choked. "Thermals. They can see our body heat." "We're done then." "No," he said calmly. "Just slow." He led us to a stream and stepped into it. The water bit cold around my ankles. "This will distort their sensors," he said. I followed, Cecilia close behind. We waded upstream, the forest blurring around us. Minutes felt like hours. Only when the ridge loomed ahead, a jagged wall of stone and roots, did we stop. The old man looked up. "This is where most people turn back." Cecilia grabbed a protruding root and began climbing. No hesitation, no fear. I followed, hands trembling as I pulled myself upward. The bark bit into my fingers, loose stones slid beneath my feet. Below, faint lights flickered. The men had reached the stream. The old man pressed his palm to my back, guiding me upward.
Halfway up, the climb steepened. Rain-soaked moss made the surface slippery. My foot slipped, and I nearly fell. Cecilia reached down, grabbing my wrist. Her grip was iron. "Don't look down," she whispered. I didn't. I couldn't. We climbed higher. The sounds of pursuit grew faint, then disappeared entirely, only for a new sound to emerge. A low hum. Mechanical. Rhythmic. The old man looked up sharply. "No." A dark shape glided overhead. A drone. Silent. Predatory. "It's scanning," Cecilia hissed. "We need cover," the old man said, moving faster. Near the top of the ridge, a narrow ledge jutted out beneath an overhang of stone. We pressed ourselves into it as the drone passed overhead. A bright beam swept across the ridge, just inches from us, before moving on. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my teeth. We waited, in breathless stillness until the hum faded. Then we climbed again. At the top, the ground leveled into a small clearing. Trees circled the space like silent guards. Cecilia wiped her forehead, leaving streaks of dirt and dried blood. "We can't keep running," I said, chest burning. "We're not running," the old man replied. "We're repositioning." He pulled out the folded map and spread it across a rock. The moonlight was just enough to read it. "Here," he said, pointing to a narrow valley. "North is a shelter I built years ago. But there's another option." He tapped a spot far to the west. A town. A name. "Valemont," he said. "Neutral ground. People there owe your father." "How far?" Cecilia asked. 2 days on foot." "We won't make it," I whispered.
The old man looked at me, a hard, unwavering stare. You don't know what you can do until you have no choice. A branch snapped somewhere behind us. We froze. Cecilia instinctively stepped closer, her hand finding mine. The old man closed the map and slid it into his coat. We move. We pushed deeper into the trees. My muscles burned. Every breath stung like frost. But fear drove me onward. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost meaning. At last we reached a slope covered in tall reeds and fallen logs. The old man raised his hand, signaling us to stop. Listen. At first, all I heard was my own frantic breathing. Then, a whistle. Soft. 3 short notes. Cecilia stiffened. Is that them? No, the old man said quietly. Someone else. Another whistle answered 2 short notes. A code. The old man stepped forward and whistled once, a long, low tone. Silence. Then, a figure emerged from behind a tree. A woman. Tall, sturdy, dressed in weathered hiking gear. Her face was scarred across the brow, but her eyes were alert, sharp. She looked at the old man. You're late. He replied, Traffic. She snorted softly, then turned her gaze toward us. You must be his son, she said. Her voice was gravel. I nodded. We don't have long, she said. They're pushing from the south and circling east. We have a window. Barely. Where are we going? Cecilia asked. She jerked her head west. Out of the forest. A vehicle's waiting. After that, Valemont. We followed her through the underbrush. She moved with practiced silence, weaving between trees like she'd memorized every inch of the land. How do you know my father? I asked. She didn't look back. He saved my life. That's all you need to know. Ahead, a faint glimmer appeared, metal reflecting moonlight. A jeep. She motioned for us to stay low as she approached. The old man scanned the tree line, tense. Cecilia squeezed my arm. They're not stopping, she whispered. I know. The woman slid into the driver's seat. Get in, now. We piled in, the engine coughed, then roared. Just as she hit the headlights, a figure burst from the trees ahead.
Tall, broad, gun raised. The woman swerved hard. The shot shattered the windshield, and the Jeep fishtailed, tires screaming against wet earth. The Jeep spun, dirt spraying like shards of glass. My body slammed against the door. Cecilia grabbed my jacket and pulled me back before I could be thrown out. The old man cursed, bracing himself as the vehicle skidded sideways, barely regaining traction. Another gunshot cracked, splintering the rear window. The woman jerked the wheel sharply, plunging us deeper into the dark road cutting through the forest. Branches whipped against the sides like angry claws. They're too close, she growled. The old man craned his neck to look behind us. A pair of headlights burst through the trees, a black SUV tearing after us, engine roaring like a beast. Cecilia's hand found mine in the chaos. I felt her heartbeat, rapid, frantic, matching my own. The Jeep accelerated, tires screaming as she took a hairpin turn. The Jeep nearly lifted on 2 wheels before slamming back down. Gravel spat behind us. The SUV kept coming. That model's reinforced, the old man muttered. They can ram us clean off the road. The woman reached under her seat and pulled out a metal cylinder. Not if I slow them down first. Without hesitation, she tossed it out the window. It hit the road and burst into a cloud of jagged sparks. When the SUV plowed through, one tire erupted, rubber shredding. The vehicle swerved, crashing into a tree with a thunderous crack. But even as metal screamed and glass shattered behind us, I saw the silhouettes inside begin to crawl out. We didn't stop them, Cecilia whispered. No, the woman replied. Just bought time. The road narrowed. winding uphill. A cold mist crawled across the pavement as the forest thinned. I looked down at the notebook in my lap, fingers trembling. My father's handwriting stared back. Names. Dates. The word Aurelius circled over and over. "What is Aurelius?" I asked again. The woman exhaled. Slow. Controlled. She said, "A web. Older than your family, older than any of us. Money, influence, legitimacy on the surface, violence beneath. That crest, the ring, yes, their mark." She glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "And you are now a threat to them." My stomach twisted. The Jeep bounced over potholes as the old man pointed ahead. Bridge. Through the fog, I saw it. A wooden bridge spanning a deep ravine. Its planks looked ancient, barely holding. "Are we crossing that?" I asked. "We don't have a choice," the woman replied. The Jeep surged forward. We hit the bridge, boards groaning beneath us. The structure shook violently. Halfway across, another pair of headlights flashed at the far end. A second SUV. "No," Cecilia gasped. The vehicle sped towards us. The woman swore and slammed the brakes. The Jeep skidded, halting inches before the SUV rammed us head-on. Wood splintered beneath us. The SUV's door opened. A figure stepped out. A familiar face. My uncle, Victor. The old man reached for his gun. "Don't," the woman warned. "He'll shoot first." Victor smiled, hands casually tucked into his coat pockets. "You've made quite a mess," he called. My breath caught. I thought I'd never see him again after we fled the mansion. Yet here he was, calm, composed, as though this were nothing more than an inconvenient conversation. "Come out," he said. His voice echoed across the ravine. "Let's talk." The woman looked at the old man. A silent exchange passed between them, one I didn't understand. Then the old man spoke, voice steady. "Your brother trusted the wrong people, Victor." Victor's smile didn't change. "He trusted the inevitable, something you never learned." His gaze slid to me. "You should have stayed asleep that night. It would have been painless." Cecilia tensed beside me. "He knows about the cottage. And the river tunnels. You think we don't know our own land?" My bones turned to ice. "Get out of the vehicle," Victor said. "And if we don't?" the woman asked. Victor glanced over his shoulder. More men stepped from the SUV, black-clad, silent, armed. "Then we remove you." The old man leaned toward my ear. "Whatever happens, run west." "There's nowhere to run," I whispered. "Yes, there is, always." Cecilia squeezed my hand. She locked with mine, fear and fierce determination burning inside them. The woman slowly opened her door, hands visible. The old man followed. Victor raised a hand. "Good. Let's keep this civil." He extended his arm toward the notebook in my hands. "That belongs to us." My grip tightened around it. His smile faded. "You don't know what you're holding." "I know enough," I said. He stepped closer, boots heavy on the fragile wood. "It's more than just ledgers. That's the key to an empire, and an empire cannot afford loose threads." He nodded at the men. Two advanced. Cecilia suddenly grabbed my arm. "Keep your head down." Then, a scream of metal tore through the air. The bridge lurched, wood snapping beneath the SUV's weight. The planks gave way. The SUV pitched sideways. Victor shouted. Men scrambled, but gravity won. The vehicle tumbled into darkness, crashing into the ravine below. Screams vanished into the abyss. The bridge sagged dangerously beneath us. "Run!" the woman shouted. We bolted toward the opposite end, boards cracking behind us, the entire structure collapsing. The old man grabbed my arm when my foot slipped through a gap. He pulled me up as Cecilia pushed behind, forcing momentum. The women reached the far end first and turned, shouting, "Move!" We leapt off the bridge as the final plank snapped, the entire structure crashing into the ravine. I hit the ground hard. Pain shot up my arm.
but we were alive. The ravine behind us was now a graveyard of splintered wood and twisted metal. No one from the other side moved. No one crossed. Cecilia knelt beside me, checking my hands, my face. "You're okay," she whispered breathlessly. The old man stood, looking across the ravine. His expression was grim. "They'll find another way." The woman nodded. "We keep moving." My mind spun with panic and confusion. We'd survived. Again, but something felt wrong. Victor had fallen, but his calm words lingered. He expected this. We started west, weaving through thick brush as frost began to settle on the leaves. Cecilia stayed close, her hand brushing mine in the darkness. The woman led, silent and relentless. The old man trailed behind, protecting our backs. After nearly an hour, the forest opened into a small meadow. Mist hung low, glowing pale beneath the moon. "We rest here," the woman said. The old man shook his head. "They'll catch up. They need time to regroup. We take what we can." We settled beneath a cluster of boulders. The air was sharp, burning my lungs. Cecilia tore a piece of cloth and wrapped her bleeding arm. I helped, hands shaking as I tied the knot. "You should have left me," I whispered. She smiled weakly. "I would never." Her eyes flicked to the notebook I still held. She pulled it into her lap and traced the crest on the page. "Aurelius," she murmured. "What do they want with me?" I asked. "They don't want you," she said softly. "They want what you carry, and what you are." A cold knot formed in my gut. What am I? The old man turned, his face unreadable in the shadows. "You're the heir," he said quietly, "to your father's legacy, and to his war." Before I could respond, the woman went still. Her eyes narrowed toward the trees. A faint crackle echoed, like radio static. She reached for her weapon. Too late. A flare exploded overhead, bathing the meadow in blinding white light. Voices erupted from every direction. "They found us," Cecilia breathed. The woman yanked me to my feet. "Run, now." Cecilia's fingers tightened around mine as the cellar filled with low voices. Not whispers, orders, measured, controlled. The kind of voices belonging to men who had eliminated problems before and never regretted it. She pulled me deeper behind the dusty wine crates, her breath slow, as if she had trained herself to become invisible. The footsteps separated, one heading toward the furnace, the other slow and close, sweeping the center aisle. Dust drifted from the rafters with every step, each grain filling louder than a scream. My heartbeat hammered against my ribs. Cecilia pressed her trembling hand against my chest, desperate to mute the sound. The man closest to us paused. Too close. I could smell his cologne, metallic, expensive. Wrong. A bottle leaned precariously near my shoulder. It slipped. Just a fraction. I caught it before it fell, hands shaking, silent as death. The man grunted, turning sharply. I felt the air shift. His flashlight beam skimmed the top of the crates, stopping inches from my face. Cecilia held her breath. I mirrored hers. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, a shout came from the far side of the cellar. "Nothing here. Check the garden." The beam withdrew, footsteps retreating, then fading. Cecilia didn't move until silence soaked every corner of the cellar. Even then, she waited longer, listening as if she could hear through walls. When she finally exhaled, it sounded like the first breath she'd taken in years. "We can't stay here," she whispered. She led me through a narrow, crumbling passage, hidden behind a rack of old burgundy. The wall looked solid from the outside, but the center brick was loose. She pressed her thumb against it, and a thin panel slid aside. My father had shown me many places in this mansion when I was a child, but never this. The passage was suffocatingly dark, only a sliver of moonlight filtering through cracks in the stone. Cecilia pressed forward, running her fingers along the wall as she guided us around a bend. The air grew colder. Older? "Where does this lead?" I whispered. "To the greenhouse," she said. "Your father brought me through here once, when I first arrived." I stumbled behind her. She navigated like memory lived in the stone itself. "Why did he help you?" I asked. She hesitated. "He was different. He saw things others refused to see. We reached a rusted metal hatch. Cecilia pushed her weight against it. It groaned but held. "Help me." Together we shoved, the hinges screaming as it opened into a concealed alcove behind ivy-covered windows. Moonlight poured in. The greenhouse loomed ahead like a cathedral made of glass and forgotten promises. Plants crowded every corner, lush and wild, vines curling across shattered floor tiles. My father had once loved this place. He spent hours tending orchids, cultivating rare species, claiming they made him feel alive. Now the place smelled like damp earth and dust, like neglect. "Why here?" I asked. "Because Evelyn never comes here," she whispered. "She hates what she can't control." We moved between towering ferns. Every shadow felt like it could shift into a threat. I tried to listen for footsteps, voices, anything, but the world was still. Cecilia crouched behind a massive table of mossy pots. She motioned for me to do the same. "We need proof." "For what?" "That they killed your father, that they're trying to do the same to you." My throat tightened. "How do you know so much?" Her gaze flicked downward. "Because I heard them." She lifted her sleeve. "Bruises, old and new. They thought I didn't understand. But I listened. They planned everything. The medication, the will, the doctor. They said, quote, 'One day you'd be taken care of too, quietly, like your father.' My blood ran cold. "And the doctor?" I asked. "But," her voice cracked, "your stepmother paid him to sign the certificate before anyone could question it." I swallowed hard. I knew something was wrong. "He knew it too," she whispered. "He tried to protect you. That's why the will hasn't been filed yet." "What will?" She glanced toward the shadowed window. "The real one. He changed it 3 days before he died. Everything was meant to go to you. Nothing to Evelyn. Nothing to Aaron." My heart lunged into my throat. "But they said that he never changed it because they hid it." An engine roared in the distance. Several, actually. Lights flared across the greenhouse glass. Headlights. "They found us," I breathed. Cecilia grabbed my hand and pulled me deeper into the shadows, ducking under a bench covered in tangled vines. The lights cut across the flowers like search beams. Men spilled into the garden, their shoes crunching gravel. I recognized the voices. Evelyn's circle. Men who smelled of power and corruption. Cecilia leaned so close her hair brushed my cheek. She whispered, "If they take you, they'll make it look like you left. Or an accident." I wanted to speak, to ask something, anything, but she pressed her fingers to my lips. A silhouette stopped just outside the greenhouse door. I knew that posture, that contemptuous stillness. Evelyn. She stood beneath the arches of roses like she was already at my funeral. "Search everywhere," she ordered calmly. "They're still on the property." Her voice held no urgency, no anger, just certainty. She knew, eventually, they would find us. Cecilia nudged me, gesturing toward the far end of the greenhouse where a small wooden shed stood half-hidden beneath curling vines. We crawled silently, keeping low, moving between pots and abandoned tools. Then, a beam from a flashlight skated across the glass and caught the edge of my shoe. I froze. A shout sliced the night. "There!" Cecilia bolted upright, dragging me with her as the greenhouse erupted into chaos. Men stormed through the entrance, crushing plants under their boots, knocking over tables. We sprinted toward the shed, shoving the door open, slipping inside just as footsteps thundered behind us. Cecilia threw the latch. The shed was small, filled with old gardening tools, fertilizer sacks, and a strange, heavy trunk pushed against the back wall. She leaned against it, breathing hard. Something thudded against the shed wall. Then voices. They were close. Too close. Cecilia hurried to the trunk, flipping the latches. "Help me open it." We threw the lid back, and inside, I saw something that made my blood ice over. It was my father's handwriting. Stacks of his journals, documents, letters, all tied with string, hidden away like forbidden truth. Cecilia grabbed a bundle, panic blazing in her eyes. "This is why they killed him," she whispered. Outside, footsteps stopped directly in front of the shed. The doorknob rattled. Cecilia's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "We're running out of time." The door shook under the force of a fist. Wood creaked. Dust sprinkled from the beams above us. Cecilia pressed her back against the trunk, pulling me with her. Her breath hitched, fast and thin. "Give us a second," a man outside chuckled, voice low, amused in a sick way. "Don't break it yet. They're cornered." Someone else spoke, calmer, controlled. "Evelyn wants him alive. The girl? Doesn't matter." I felt Cecilia flinch. The handle jerked violently, over and over, each strike more desperate. The thin latch holding the door trembled. Cecilia's fingers scrambled across the documents, tearing string loose. I saw one letter addressed to me, written in my father's unmistakable handwriting. The sight stabbed through me. Before I could reach for it, Cecilia shoved it into my hands. "Read later," she mouthed. The door groaned under another blow. Splinters scattered across the floor. "They're coming," I whispered. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the back wall. Wedged near the floor was a small metal grate, rusted and half hidden by dirt. She dropped to her knees, clutching its edge. The screws were old. The metal protested as she forced it open. A sliver of stale air drifted out. "Go," she whispered. "Where?" "Old drainage tunnels. They connect to the river." Another strike. A hinge snapped. Light burst through a crack as the door buckled. I hesitated. If I left her... Cecilia looked at me, fierce, almost angry. "Move, now." I slid into the opening, cold stone scraping against my clothes. Cecilia shoved the journals in after me, then crawled halfway in. The shed door blew inward. Men poured inside, flashlights slicing the darkness. "There!" One grabbed Cecilia's ankle. She gasped and kicked, claws scrambling for purchase. I seized her arms, pulling. My muscles screamed. Her fingers slipped, caught, slipped again. The man yanked harder, dragging her backward. Her nails raked the stone as she fought, desperate. "Don't let go," I hissed. Her eyes locked onto mine, a quiet, terrified plea. In one frantic burst, I pulled with everything I had. The man lost his grip. Cecilia tumbled into the tunnel, landing hard against me. I shoved the grate back in place with trembling hands, just as a hand slammed against the metal bars from the other side. Fingers clawed through, sweeping the air inches from my face. We scrambled deeper into the darkness. Shouts erupted behind us. The grate rattled. Metal screamed as they tried to rip it open. The passage narrowed, forcing us onto our stomachs. We crawled, stones scraping knees and elbows. The smell of damp earth and old water filled the air. Behind us, the metal finally gave way. Boots clanged into the tunnel. "They're in here!" Cecilia pressed her hand to her lips, silent. We kept crawling. The tunnel dropped, steep and uneven. My palms slid over moss, slime, gravel. Water trickled beneath us. My breath echoed in the tight space, too loud. Ahead, a thin glow. Faint. Almost imaginary. Cecilia tapped my shoulder and pointed. We crawled toward it. The light brightened, moonlight spilling through a broken drainage pipe, opening into the forest below the estate. We scrambled out, collapsing into tall grass. My lungs burned. My hands shook violently. Cecilia grabbed my wrist again and pulled me into the woods. Branches snapped underfoot. The night swallowed us. Behind, the tunnel poured men into the clearing. Flashlights jerked through the darkness. "Split up!" We slipped between trees. weaving through black shadows and moonlit patches. Cecilia seemed to know where she was going. She ran with strange certainty, feet barely making a sound. The forest sloped downhill, thick with ferns and roots. We ducked under fallen logs, splashed through a narrow stream, climbed a rocky ridge. I bit my tongue to silence my breath. Every heartbeat was a drum. Finally, the noises behind us faded, but Cecilia did not stop. Her grip was unyielding, more desperate than before. We ran until my legs gave out. I stumbled to my knees. She crouched beside me, chest rising and falling. "We can't go back," she whispered. "They'll search all night." I opened my fist. The letter from my father was still there, crumpled and damp with sweat. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, voice strained. She looked away, guilt flickering across her face. "They threatened me," she whispered. "They said if I spoke, they would make me disappear." A tear slid down her cheek. "But when they killed him, I couldn't stay silent." My throat tightened. I wanted to ask more, but footsteps snapped twigs nearby. We froze. Not hunting footsteps, running. A figure emerged between the trees. For a second, fear surged, but then the figure staggered into view, clutching his side. A man, mid-40s, bleeding. His face was familiar. Dr. Harrow, the doctor who signed my father's death certificate. He collapsed at our feet. Cecilia gasped and knelt beside him. "Help me turn him over," she whispered. We rolled him gently. His shirt was soaked with blood. A deep gash cut across his ribs, still bleeding fresh. His eyes fluttered. You have to listen," he rasped. I leaned close. "I was wrong," he choked. "I didn't know they'd go this far." "You signed the papers," I said, voice shaking. "They forced me," he gasped. "Threatened my family. I tried to warn your father. Too late. They have plans bigger than inheritance." "What plans?" I demanded. He coughed, blood trailing from his lips. "The organization Evelyn works with, they wanted your father's research." My breath caught. "What research?" "Gene..." He spasmed. Cecilia gripped his hand. "Doctor, please, stay awake." His eyes rolled, unfocused. He fought to speak. "They're going to use you as leverage." A sharp, broken breath. "You must find the other journal hidden in..." A gosh blot cracked the night. Dr. Harrow jerked, then fell still. Cecilia screamed, clamping a hand over her mouth too late. A second gunshot splintered a tree trunk inches from us. Voices erupted in the dark. "Over there!" Cecilia grabbed my hand. "Run!" We tore through the forest, branches tearing at our clothes, roots clawing at our feet. Flashlights slashed through the trees behind us, too close. Another shot whistled past my ear. Pain exploded across my arm, a burning slice. I stumbled. Cecilia caught me before I fell. "You're hit." "I'm fine. Keep going." We sprinted downhill, the ground giving way to loose soil and rocks. My vision blurred. My arm throbbed. Then, through the trees, a glow. Not headlights, warm, flickering. A cabin. Smoke drifted from its chimney, faint against the sky. Cecilia shoved through the brush, dragging me toward it. Behind us, voices closed in, relentless. The cabin door came into view, and something inside flickered. Not safety. Something else. Cecilia's hand shot out in front of me, fingers trembling, signaling silence. Her breathing was ragged but controlled, her eyes fixed on the dark interior of the cabin. A faint glow danced across the wooden floorboards, coming from deeper within. Firelight. But there were no voices, no movement, just that quiet, flickering pulse. She leaned close to my ear, whispering, so softly, I felt the words rather than heard them. Someone's inside. The wind slipped through the trees behind us, carrying distant shouts. Evelyn's men closing in. We didn't have many choices. Go forward and risk the unknown, or stay and face what was certain. Cecilia's grip tightened around my wrist. We move, she breathed. She eased the door open. It didn't creak. The hinges silent, well-oiled. Someone was maintaining this place. Inside, the air was warm, hazy with smoke and herbs. It smelled like rosemary, pine, and something metallic underneath it all. The single room was lit by a small lantern and a stove in the corner. A kettle sat atop the burner, steam curling upward. Someone had been expecting guests, or had just left.
Cecilia guided me in, shutting the door behind us without a sound. She swept the room with her eyes, sharp, calculating, before motioning me toward the far corner. Stay behind me. I wanted to argue. My arm throbbed, warm blood trickling down my sleeve, but adrenaline kept me upright. A floorboard whispered deeper in the cabin. Not loud, just enough to tell us that we weren't alone. Cecilia slipped her hand beneath her apron and pulled out something small and metal, a folding knife. My breath hitched. I didn't know she carried weapons. She edged forward, eyes locked on a shadowed doorway near the back wall. The lantern light just barely reached it, illuminating a sliver of empty hall. Her foot touched another board, and it groaned. The shadows shifted. A figure stepped out. My heart stopped. He was older, late 60s maybe, face lined with age, gray hair slicked back. He wore a thick wool shirt, sleeves rolled, and his hands were raised to show he held no weapon. Easy, he said, voice low, steady. No one's here to hurt you. Cecilia didn't lower the knife. Her stance hardened. Who are you? The man's gaze flicked to me, lingering with recognition. It unsettled me. Your father sent me. The room went still. Cecilia's breath caught. My pulse surged. That's impossible, I whispered. He's dead. The old man nodded slowly. I know, but before he died, he came to me. He knew something was coming. Footsteps thundered outside, closer now, maybe 100 meters away. We don't have time for stories, Cecilia said sharply. If you're with us, help. If you're not, move. The man didn't flinch. Instead, he pointed to a trapdoor beneath the rug in the center of the room. Down there, now. I hesitated, glancing at Cecilia. She looked uncertain, fear and distrust battling behind her eyes. Outside, voices rose, shouting orders. Flashlights sliced through the trees, beams glowing against the window glass. Cecilia clenched her jaw and nodded. Fine, but you go first, she told the man. He didn't argue. He tossed the rug aside, revealing a metal hatch. He pulled it open, revealing a steep wooden ladder leading into darkness. He descended without hesitation. Cecilia motioned for me to follow. I climbed down with my wounded arm pressed to my chest, every rung sending a dull shock through my bones. The air below was cool and damp. A tunnel, stone walls, wooden supports. Cecilia came down after me, closing the hatch above just as the cabin door upstairs burst open. Boots thundered across the floor. Men shouted, overturning furniture. We moved. The tunnel angled downward, the ceiling low enough that I had to duck. The old man walked ahead of us, lantern in hand. Its glow cast warped shadows along the walls. We followed its flickering trail through the cold dark. Minutes passed. Voices above faded.
replaced by the slow drip of water and the distant hum of wind through unseen cracks. Only then did I dare speak. "How did you know my father?" The lantern swayed as the man answered. "Because I worked with him for nearly 20 years. "Doing what?" Cecilia asked. "His research. The part he couldn't tell anyone about." That word again. Research. Dr. Harrow mentioned it too. I swallowed hard. What was he researching? The man paused, turned. His face, dimly lit, was grave. "Bloodlines." The word echoed strangely against the stone. Before I could ask more, he continued walking, motioning for us to keep up. He discovered anomalies. Certain families with traits. Genetic advantages passed down through generations. Intelligence, longevity, strength, influence. Your family, the Morels, are one of them. My stomach twisted. Then why kill him? "Because he wanted to expose them," the man said quietly. "He found evidence that the organization, your stepmother's circle, has been manipulating bloodlines for generations, controlling who marries whom, who inherits what, who survives." My mouth dried up. "Why me?" The man stopped before a wooden door reinforced with iron bars. "Because you're different. Your father made sure of it. He married outside the circle. You aren't under their control." Cecilia frowned, voice trembling. "What do they want?" The man looked at me. "You. Alive." My skin crawled. "To force your compliance, your signature, or your children someday." A nauseating chill curled through me. "They want you to bring you back. Not yet to kill you, but to turn you." The idea felt worse than death. The man opened the iron-bound door. Inside was a small room, stone walls, a table covered in papers and old instruments, a cot in the corner. It looked like someone had lived there recently. The man pulled out a leather-bound book. My father's name was stamped on the cover. Cecilia let out a tiny gasp. "This," the man said, "is the journal Harrow mentioned, hidden here, where only I could retrieve it." I reached for it with shaking hands, but before I touched it, a metallic click echoed behind us. Cecilia spun, knife raised. A silhouette stood in the doorway, gun aimed at the old man's chest. I froze. My breath died in my throat. The figure stepped into the lantern light. Aaron, my brother, eyes cold, expression emptied of anything human. "Hello," he said quietly. "As usual, I'm cleaning up your mess." Aaron's voice slid through the small chamber like a blade, calm and quiet in a way that made my stomach twist. He didn't look surprised to see us. He looked prepared. The old man lifted his hands slowly, palms open. His expression didn't change, almost as if he had expected this possibility. Cecilia stepped instinctively in front of me, knife lifted, though her hand shook violently. Aaron's eyes flicked to her. A lazy, almost amused smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You," he murmured, "so loyal. It's pathetic." Cecilia didn't respond, but I felt the tension radiating from her, like she was ready to strike, even if it meant dying. Aaron tilted his head slightly. "Put the knife down, Cece. You're not walking out of here if you force my hand." Cecilia's voice was barely more than a whisper. "We're not going back with you." Aaron sighed, almost theatrically. "I wasn't asking." Steel trembled in her grip. The old man edged a step closer, placing himself between Aaron and us. "Aaron," he said softly, "you don't need to do this." A short laugh escaped Aaron. "You think I came all this way to negotiate? You never understood us, old man. That's why Father cut you out. He knew you'd betray him." The old man's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak. Aaron lifted the gun higher, leveling it at his chest. "You're done."
Before he squeezed the trigger, Cecilia moved. She lunged, knife flashing. Aaron jerked back. The blade grazed his forearm, slicing fabric and skin. He hissed, stumbling. The old man seized the distraction, grabbing a metal tray and swinging it hard toward Aaron's wrist. The gun fired, a deafening blast in the stone room, but the bullet ricocheted off the metal doorframe, sparks flaring. I ducked instinctively. Cecilia grabbed my arm. "Run!" The old man shoved the leather journal into my hands and barked, "Take it! Go!" We sprinted toward a narrow side tunnel I hadn't noticed before. It sloped sharply downward, barely wide enough for one person. Behind us, Aaron cursed, firing again. The gunshot echoed like thunder, dust raining from the ceiling. I heard the old man grunt. A hit. I turned back. He staggered, clutching his side, forcing himself upright. "Move!" he yelled, voice cracking but fierce. His body blocked the tunnel entrance, arm braced against the stone wall. Cecilia dragged me deeper into the darkness before I could think. The tunnel twisted sharply, pressing us into shadow. The air tasted of minerals and damp moss. Our footsteps splashed through shallow water pooling along the floor. I looked back once. I saw the old man slump against the wall as Aaron advanced, gun outstretched. Then we turned a corner and he was gone. I ran harder. My arm burned where the bullet had grazed me earlier. Warm blood trickled down my wrist, trailing behind me. Cecilia's breathing was ragged, but she didn't slow. Not once. The tunnel forked ahead, two narrow passages splitting into deeper black. I froze. Which way? Cecilia didn't answer immediately. Her gaze flicked between them, listening. Footsteps echoed behind us. Closer. "I don't know," she whispered. The sound of water surged faintly to the right, the smell of earth stronger to the left. Cecilia grabbed my hand and pulled us right. The tunnel widened enough for both of us to run side by side. The air grew colder, wetter. The ceiling dripped steadily. The roar of water grew louder with each step. Suddenly, the tunnel opened onto a precipice overlooking an underground river. Dark water churned violently below, slamming against jagged rocks like a living beast. A narrow, rusted bridge spanned the gap, a single metal beam, barely wide enough for 1 foot at a time. Cecilia stared at it, horrified. "We can't—" A gunshot rang behind us. Stone fractured near my shoulder, spraying shards. Aaron's voice echoed down the tunnel. "End of the line!" Cecilia didn't wait. She gripped my wrist and stepped onto the beam, balancing. "Don't look down!" she shouted over the roar.
The metal groaned beneath us. My stomach lurched as I stared across the chasm, the opposite tunnel barely visible in the dim lantern glow attached to the wall. We crept along, shaking, wind pushing violently upward from the raging river below. Halfway across, I heard a second set of footsteps. Aaron had reached the mouth of the tunnel. I didn't dare look. A shot cracked. The bullet pinged against the beam beneath my foot. I nearly fell, arms flailing, heart exploding in terror. But Cecilia grabbed my shirt and anchored me. "Focus!" she screamed. Her voice wasn't pleading, it was commanding. I forced myself to keep moving, one slow step at a time. Behind us, Aaron stepped onto the beam. "You can't run forever," he shouted. His voice sounded closer than it should. Too close. A swirl of dizziness hit me. Blood loss. Fear. Both. Cecilia reached the far side, jumped onto solid stone, then turned to me, arms out. "Give me your hand." I reached. But the beam lurched. Aaron had jumped. His landing shook the metal violently. He advanced fast, more stable than either of us. I staggered. The journal almost slipped from my fingers. Cecilia leaned forward, grabbing my forearm and hauling me onto the ledge. My knees buckled. She didn't waste time. She turned back and kicked at the beam with her heel, trying to dislodge it. It rattled, but held. Aaron kept coming, steady, fearless. His face was calm, far too calm. "You really thought you could escape?" he called. The beam creaked ominously, bowing under all three of us. Cecilia grabbed my hand and pulled me to my feet. The tunnel ahead stretched into darkness. We had no idea where it led. Aaron stepped off the beam onto the ledge. His gun rose, aimed at my chest. Cecilia stepped in front of me. "No!" Aaron laughed under his breath. "You always did get in the way." His finger tightened on the trigger. The ground beneath us trembled. A low, deep rumble shuddered through the stone. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. A crack split the tunnel floor beneath Aaron's feet. He staggered, losing balance. The beam twisted, broke free. He slipped, arms flailing. Cecilia lunged, grabbing his wrist. Time froze. Aaron dangled above the raging river, weight pulling Cecilia dangerously close to the edge. His gun tumbled into the darkness below. His eyes wide with shock, then fury. He shouted, "Pull me up!" Cecilia's face contorted, not with fear, but with torment. His other hand clawed up her arm, desperate. "Cecilia, don't!" I cried. But she didn't look at me. She stared at Aaron, then whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she let go. Aaron's scream tore through the cavern as he dropped into the black water, vanishing instantly beneath the churning current. The river swallowed him whole. Cecilia stumbled back, trembling, hand pressed against her mouth, her eyes wide, horrified at what she had done, yet resolved. I reached for her, but she jerked away, breathing hard, tears streaking her face. "We have to move," she whispered, voice cracking. "They'll send more." She turned toward the dark tunnel ahead. I clutched the journal to my chest, pulse hammering. The ground was still trembling, not from the river now, but from something deeper, a hidden rhythm, a pulse. We ran into the dark, towards something unknown and infinitely more dangerous than what we'd left behind. The words, "I forgive you," slipped from my mouth before I could stop them, and the room seemed to freeze. Not because they didn't deserve punishment, but because the story was finally ending where it began, with a family too poisoned to see they were already dead inside. Evelyn stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Her expensive lipstick trembled for the first time. Her hand, once steady as a viper, shook with something I hadn't seen in her before. Fear. Not of punishment, but of irrelevance. She had built her empire on control, deception, and carefully planned destruction. My father was her masterpiece, I the unfinished chapter, and Cecilia, the mistake she never expected. Her eyes darted to Aaron, then Victor, as though searching for an anchor, but they stood apart from her, each suddenly a stranger. That was the final blow. Her carefully bound alliance fell apart in silence. No one spoke. The officers moved. Evelyn's scream tore through the room, high, desperate, collapsing into some sound somewhere between rage and begging. The woman who once commanded an army of shadows was now dragged across the tiled floor, her hands clawing at splinters of a world she no longer owned. Aaron didn't resist. He simply sat down, head lowered,
a broken man who had never been strong enough to think for himself. By the time he looked up, it was too late. Cuffs, a hollow apology to no one, and a long, empty stare at the door where Evelyn had vanished. Victor tried to escape. He made it past the entryway, but Cecilia stepped forward. Her tiny frame blocked his path. He froze, recognizing her. The ghost from the night he hurt her. The child he thought would never grow teeth. His arrogance vanished. He stepped back into the room, hands raised, as if she carried a weapon, but she didn't need one. Some truths tear deeper than any blade. And so, just like that, the storm ended the way all storms do. Not with lightning, but with silence. The house felt lighter, but painfully so, like lungs remembering how to breathe after drowning. Paramedics arrived and took the unconscious guard from the basement. The police cataloged every hidden room, every ledger, every silent testament to the crimes committed under this roof. The mansion I grew up in, once a kingdom, was now a crime scene. As dawn crept across the lawn, painting the broken windows gold, Cecilia and I stood outside, wrapped in thin blankets. The air smelled like dust, dew, and endings. I thought she would celebrate. I thought she would smile, laugh, breathe freely, but she just stared at the rising sun, face pale, hands clasped. "What now?" I whispered. She closed her eyes, shaking her head. "I don't know." For the first time, she looked uncertain. She was no longer a girl hiding behind caution, no longer a servant fleeing danger. The cage was open. But freedom tasted strange. The chief approached, holding an envelope sealed in wax. He said it had been found in my father's study, hidden in a drawer with a false bottom. I took it with trembling hands. The handwriting, I recognized it instantly. My father's. My eyes stung before I even opened it. To my child, if you are reading this, then darkness has done what I feared most. I could not protect you from them, but there is someone who can. Trust her. She carries a truth deeper than blood. She was never a maid. She is your shield. Keep her close and forgive her for what she cannot tell you. No matter what happens, remember, I love you more than my own life. The signature blurred as tears spilled across the page. I turned to Cecilia. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her secret was no longer just hers. "You knew," I whispered. She nodded once, eyes shimmering. "My mother worked for your father. He saved us both, until they killed her." Her voice trembled. "He promised he'd protect me. I promised I'd protect you." It made sense now. Why she had arrived without a formal hiring, why she always watched me, why she risked her life. She wasn't a maid. She was the last thread of my father's love. Grief broke inside me, messy, violent, real. I hugged her. She stiffened, then slowly melted